top stories. NHC management and board visit construction sites of newly built homes. UN says Venezuela's president's security committed crimes against humanity, and states see huge floods as Hurricane Sally hits U.S. Gulf Coast. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Thursday, September 17, 2020. I'm your presenter, Shaira Flanders. Nationally, on Wednesday, September 16th, the management team, along with the board of directors at the National Housing Corporation, or NHC, visited some of the construction sites of soon-to-be completed homes around the island. While visiting one of the sites on Conyers, Minister of Human Settlement responsible for NHC, Honorable Eugene Hamilton, noted that just about 16 homes were currently under construction.
Here at Conyers, we have 16 properties being developed, 9 of which are the traditional houses, though they are sitting on stilts, and the other 7 are of a different design, a design which takes in 2 floors. I think it's the second time that we've seen this type of model, save and except in St. Peter's. Here is the other place where we have a model by Precision.
Explained why it was necessary to have a newly constructed duplex housing development built in that particular area.
Connery, as we know it, has no lands, and so we had to come up with a creative way as to how we can satisfy the people of Connery. And we are pleased that we are able to have 8 apartments here in Connery that will satisfy 8 families. And I trust that going forward we can continue to be creative in our ideas in order to ensure that the people of this country has a place to call their home.
Will be outfitted with a refrigerator, stove, and microwave. Earlier this year, the government pledged to make available the resources for at least 1,200 homes for young men and 1,800 for young women as part of the Housing Solutions program. And in other news, today is Explorers Day, and hundreds of young people across St. Kitts will attend school on Thursday sporting their Explorers Club t-shirts. Though not an official activity on the Independence calendar, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security, Osman Petty, has formally obtained the necessary approval for the children to attend school wearing their uniforms. Unlike on Independence Day, when the children parade in their formal gray uniforms, for Explorers Day, they will wear their club t-shirt and a khaki skirt or pant. Each club is represented by a different colored shirt. Founder of the Explorer Club's Inspector Iles Joseph added that the activity will also help to raise the interest of other children and parents in the clubs and attract new members. To close the day, the St. Peter's Explorers Club will host a concert on Thursday evening in which other clubs are expected to attend and participate. And as we wrap up local news, students of the Washington Archibald High School received a donation of school bags from Ross Preparatory School in a handover ceremony on Tuesday. Principal of Ross Prep, Michelle Philip Mitchell, said that the donation is in partnership with the project Operation School Bell, which is tasked with assisting students from different schools.
Operation School Bell is a project that has been on St. Kitts for a number of years, and each year they present students of the schools with book bags to help them start their year off right. This year we know it has been especially difficult for students, and so we wanted to help with Operation School Bell and get on board.
Guidance counselor at Washington Archibald High, Nadia Rollins, thanked Ross Prep for the gesture, noting the importance of the donation at this time.
We'd really like to thank you for this donation. We know that the COVID-19 pandemic has caused a lot of hardship for several families, so the donations like these are critically important. So we really thank you for this, and we hope that this partnership can continue in other aspects of our school life.
We now move to news on the regional scene. United Nations investigators have accused the Venezuelan government of crimes against humanity, including the killing and torturing of protesters. The mission found reasonable grounds to believe President Nicolas Maduro ordered the crimes to silence the opposition. Al Jazeera's Teresa Bo reports on that story.
José Gregorio and Elvira Pernalete have been demanding justice for over 2 years. Their 20-year-old son, Juan Pablo, was killed during protests in Venezuela in 2017. He died after being struck in the chest by a tear gas canister.
Nosotros nos hemos dedicado.
We have gone to every international organisation to denounce our son's execution because his death was part of a pattern of excessive use of force by the state. We need to stop this, the fact that young men go out on a protest and are killed. We want reparation and memory so that in Venezuela never again a person is killed for fighting for their rights.
It's been alleged that security forces were shooting directly towards protesters. Human rights groups say abuses have been on the rise in Venezuela since the opposition started to take to the streets against President Nicolas Maduro in 2014. On Tuesday, the United Nations fact-finding mission on Venezuela accused Maduro of crimes against humanity.
These violations were committed directly by members of state security forces and intelligence agencies. We have reasonable grounds to believe that high-level authorities within these entities, as well as political authorities who exercised power and oversight over them, including the President and the Ministers of Interior and of Defense, were aware of these crimes and either ordered or otherwise contributed to them.
The UN is asking nations and the Criminal Court of Justice to take action for the abuses, torture and extrajudicial executions that have allegedly taken place in the country since 2014. The reports show specific studies involving over 3,000 cases of violations and crimes.
The acts of torture included, among other things, severe beatings, psychological torture regarding threats of execution, carrying out mock executions, threats of execution of family members, sexual assault, rape, the threat of rape, and electrocution.
The UN report comes out just as the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo travels to South America to step up pressure against Maduro. But while Venezuela struggles to find a way out of its economic and political crisis, victims say only international pressure will help them in their fight for justice and truth. Teresa Bo, Al Jazeera.
Barbados has announced plans to become a republic, removing Queen Elizabeth II as its head of state. The former British Caribbean colony has retained the monarch as head of state when it became an independent state in 1966. We hear more in this ITV News report.
With pageantry borrowed from its former colonial ruler, Barbados chose the opening of a new session of Parliament to reveal its plan to sever links with the British monarchy. The announcement ironically read by the Governor-General, who is the Queen's representative on Barbados, though the words have been written by the Dominica and Guyana in no longer recognising the Queen as head of state. The move has been a long time coming. It was 1966, coinciding with a royal visit to the island, that Barbados left the empire.
What she's doing, okay?
We need to break the ties not long time ago.
On her 21st birthday in 1947, then Princess Elizabeth sent a message to the Commonwealth family of nations.
My whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and to the service of our great imperial family to which we all belong.
Over the years, the Queen has seen more than a dozen nations leave the family. It means Prince Harry's visit to Barbados 4 years ago, meeting that famous Barbadian Rihanna, was probably the last royal engagement of its kind there. Paul Davis, ITV News.
On the international scene, the southern U.S. is being hit with what is being described as catastrophic and life-threatening flooding. That is where Tropical Storm Sally made landfall, originally as a Category 2 hurricane. Hundreds of people have since been rescued. 500,000 people have lost power across Florida and Alabama. Al Jazeera's Andy Gallagher reports.
Hurricane Sally came ashore in the early hours of Wednesday morning, slamming into Alabama's coastline. Florida's panhandle also bore the brunt of 165 km/h winds, as heavy rain and storm surges led to life-threatening floods. Many residents were forced to evacuate to hotels as conditions worsened.
I mean, there's got to be people that were left in their offices, you know, things like that at this point. Hopefully everybody got out okay, but I feel for the people that do not have as much storage as we have here.
Sally has now weakened after making landfall, but continues to move at an agonizingly slow pace. Forecasters say that makes this storm extremely dangerous for much of the Gulf Coast. Daylight in Alabama showed a scene of devastation with severe flooding and damaged homes. Logan Estill was at home in Gulf Shores, where Sally made landfall.
We just rode it out, got on the first floor. We started hearing all of our windows start to pop. Part of the roof started coming off and siding was ripping. We just rode it out.
Last month, Louisiana was hit by one of the most powerful storms on record. Hurricane Laura killed at least 8 people and cost the state billions. And the hurricane season isn't over until the end of November. In addition to Sally, there are several other named storms currently swirling in the Atlantic. That hasn't happened since 1971. Meteorologists here in Miami will soon run out of pre-selected names for this hurricane season and be forced to use the Greek alphabet. That's only ever happened on one other occasion. Florida's governor is warning residents not to be complacent as the storm moves across the state. Hurricane Sally is the 4th storm to make landfall this year. Scientists say climate change is making storms like this wetter and slower, a potentially deadly combination. Andy Gallagher, Al Jazeera.
Iraq's government has launched a campaign to reduce the number of illegal weapons. The aim is to reduce crime, but some tribes say disarming them goes against their traditions. Al Jazeera's Dawsa Jabari reports from Baghdad, Iraq.
These are members of Iraq's Special Task Force looking for illegal guns in the southeastern province of Misan. They're eager to find them, so they search in people's homes and commercial sites like this factory, trying to uncover anywhere people could hide weapons. They've set up extra checkpoints here to make sure unregistered guns are not smuggled out. And this is what they say they've confiscated so far.
We've seized more than 30 weapons, made 6 arrests, and confiscated 4 vehicles without license plate.
This operation is also happening in the neighboring province of Basra, which has seen the biggest increase in violence in recent weeks. Tribal feuds, lack of facilities, and corruption have led to anger and protests here. And a recent rise in targeted killings of high-profile activists forced the Prime Minister to travel to Basra to reassure people the government will do more.
The targeted killing of prominent Iraqi scholar Hisham al-Hashimi in July outside his home in this neighborhood in Baghdad by gunmen on motorbikes prompted outrage across the country. The government has been accused of not being able to protect its citizens from armed groups, which is why many are turning to their tribes for protection.
This is why disarming tribes in Iraq is not an easy task.
The issue of having weapons in Iraq is not a new phenomenon. It's part of our culture, especially the tribal culture. So disarming tribes will require a special initiative to convince tribal leaders that weapons possession has a more negative impact on the entire society. And our long history of conflict has also created a market for illegal weapons.
Al-Bukhati is one of the main tribes in the country. In Baghdad, its leader explains why the government's plan won't work.
I don't believe they will succeed. It is considered an insult to take away the weapons of any tribe. Weapons are considered a symbol of all Iraqi tribes. It is because the government lacks power to protect people and enforce the rule of law, that they use their tribes to settle their disputes. And sometimes we need our weapons to settle disputes.
Back in Misan, despite the challenges facing these forces, the search goes on to rid the country of illegal weapons. Dorsa Jabari, Al Jazeera, Baghdad.
And now for the weather. Present weather shows partly cloudy skies with a gentle breeze of 8 miles per hour blowing from the north-northeast. Today's temperature will peak at 27 degrees Celsius, that's 81 degrees Fahrenheit. Seas are reaching 5 to 8 feet with northeasterly swells of 7 feet in the coastal waters east to north of the islands. A high surf advisory is in effect for the eastern-facing area. The waters west of the islands are safer for marine activities. Sunset today will be at 6:12 p.m. and the sun is expected to rise tomorrow at 5:59 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your presenter, Shaira Flanders. Have a good one.